Say it ain't so, ladies and gentlemen. Today's game is Neblime versus jakulangski, and it's on Infinite Velocity 2. It must be a banger. Well, we've got Neblime over here on the right-hand side of Infinite Velocity 2 as the Zerg. And surprisingly, jakulangski is the Protoss. He's actually been playing random, and he has indeed received an invitation to March Invitational B, so he will be there in Group D, once again duking it out against the Shambler and somebody else who has not been acknowledged yet, not been announced yet. We'll see. We'll find out. Yet to be determined. But I suspect it'll be a Protoss. One of the main things that going through random does is it helps to learn you some skills about how the other races go. And so it kind of makes sense for Jack to try to learn it this way. He has a lot of scribes queued up, I've noticed. So that's interesting. Maybe you're going to be a little bit late on putting down a pylon. But on Infinite Velocity 2, this is a map by the Beaver99, he obviously has built this map to be very large, very wide. And so the rush distance is very, you could say it's not nearly as compressed and condensed as the previous maps that you may have seen. I think this might be the first Infinite Velocity 2 cast over. No, I guess there was a match versus Hamster, I think. Neblime versus Hamster that was on this map. Anyway, it's one of the few times that we're going to see this map. So it'll be interesting. And they are talking indeed about a new unit. So since this replay was cast, I actually added, or since this game was played, I added 2 more units to the Zerg tech tree. So the Chazal is completely implemented in that respect. Now I'm dancing around something that is very important about this map, which is of course the Nidus, but I will show you guys when it actually gets used. However, that Nidus is something that opens up at the 4-minute mark, unless the Atlases are attacked before then. And so, we won't have to wait too much longer for that to come to fruition. Interestingly enough, Neblime is going to go ahead and take his hatch on the ramp. That will give him more defensibility if it's going to be a ground game that attacks into him. That is something that Protoss can do in this matchup. We've actually got 3 gate and finally a Legionnaire coming for Jack. So that's kind of interesting. By the way, he will be playing Zerg in the tournament. He's already signed up as Zerg. Unfortunately, there was a really cool Zerg versus Zerg game between Jack and Neblime that... unfortunately, it was very, very good, and then at the very end, the replay seems to have broken, and we're trying to figure out what the cause of that is. So while we, try to figure that out, we'll take a look at his Protoss. What's his Protoss up to? He's definitely got the Legionnaire down. He's keeping his money low, not going for any sort of shenanigans, and obviously ahead on workers as he usually is. Protoss usually is if they keep consistently building workers versus a Zerg that's trying to pressure. Again, in about 1 minute and 20 seconds, the Atlases will start to burn down, and we will reveal yet another exciting thing to point out here. Yeah, there's the Atlas getting focused down by the Quasis, so it will actually not be long for this world after all. With 4 armor, by the way, you are basically taking 1 damage per Quasi, which is pretty intense since they're 2x6. So that's a lot of armor, but there you go. He has done it. And now I can reveal to you guys that we have a sponsor for March Invitational B, and all future tournaments for that matter, and it's very exciting. The pickup partner, it's by BidEB. This Legionnaire charging right past, doesn't give a shit about my sponsor callouts. He just wants to see if he can kill a worker or 2. Should be able to stay on that 1 worker. Oh, but the surround, he tapped a different worker at one point and then changed focuses. So he actually did have the opportunity to kill a worker. That would have been a great punish. This Nidus is going to go down, of course. Now, at the same time, these units are working on it. I think the Nidus will die before, but there might be a chance. Oh, but just the Ecclesias get through, not the other units, and that is just a... Wow, what a timing play there. Ecclesias not able to not able to make it happen. I mean, even if the Dracula went through, it actually would have died anyway, so probably not going to be able to do too much. If there had been like a lot of Zealots or Legionnaires, that would have been a big deal, but my goodness, Jack feeling a little unlucky as a result of that. Still no expansion in sight for either of our players. And yeah, again, the pickup partner, as you can see, proudly set up over here. Looks like an Ovaleth transported a Kagrant. Yeah, there it is. To establish a foothold over here. Taking this forward base gives you more tempo to the rest of the map, whereas the back base is less resources, but a bit safer. So it kind of depends on what you're going for. Maybe the back base forces your opponent to look into air or transports. We've got an Artisan coming, so that'll be interesting, and indeed a natural expansion on the way. Legionnaire and 3 Dracodons marching across the map. They will have to contend with the Circuit. Looks like another one is going to be reinforcing the position. And the Legionnaire at this point is just going to see if he can move on through, but obviously that is not going to happen. Quasi's intercept him, and indeed Jack will be thinking twice, actually returning all the way back home with his Dracodon, so a little bit unsure of himself. It's always interesting to see, like, if a Terran player plays Zerg or a Zerg player plays Protoss or whatever. It's always interesting to see those kinds of things. Pylon over here to anti-scout. Now, again, when you see an Ovaleth, you might be a little bit scared about what it might have in it. But by this flight path, and again, it could be mind games as far as Jack knows, it doesn't really seem like it's that significant. Now, taking the back base is Neblime, so he's not actually interested in saturating this one per se. He'll probably go after the gas. That's kind of what it looks like to me, is that if you take this base and you take the natural at the same time, you're probably looking to do that. But Neblime is also known as a Droleth spammer, a worker spammer in general. And so it looks like he is now caught up fully with his opponent. The artisans are moving over here to harvest from the distant geyser. I don't think that the Ovaleth would have scouted that, so that's kind of interesting. And we have a fast Crucible with a Grand Library in the back. So we don't normally see Crucibles used, but I feel like they are a little bit sleeper because, you know, you put down this Crucible and you get like another gateway over here. You basically have 5 gateways in terms of build speed. And it really helps in particular with some of those later tier structures that have, you know, units which have a long time cost. You think about like Star Sovereigns and stuff. We're talking about over a minute by default. Now we do have the Hydrith Den coming. It's not going to be mutating into the Scab just yet. I am very interested to see what kind of composition we're going to see out of Neblime. Jakulangski, meanwhile, trying to take the roundabout path into this area. He picks off a single Quasi and then falls away. Might be convincing Neblime to go for more aggressive strategies with it. Well, I say aggressive, but he's going for aggressive amount of defense, maybe. Second Grand Library over here. By the way, you can place the Crucible without needing a pylon power field, so that's another sort of arrow in its quiver, if you will. Tool in the Protoss arsenal. Ovaleth once again just scouting, seeing, oh, you've got Grand Libraries. And because it's a detector, it can actually see that it's making Cantavis. Doesn't need to hang around, though it would still have the vision to see it pop out in that case. Definitely a useful little implement there. Meanwhile, we've got just more workers, more production. Not really any combat units to speak of just yet. Neblime feeling incredibly safe. Adding yet another Kagrant over here. It's really funny because, you know, there is a big opportunity for like lots of drops and stuff. Yeah, meanwhile, Jack is getting a lot of free Vespene off of the artisans over there. A lot of workers being queued up, just keeping it consistent. He's actually ahead of workers versus Neblime. You wouldn't necessarily think that. And distance mining from a couple of other locations. Storming around, looking for any, you know, bases that are outside this defensive perimeter. One of the things that I wouldn't be surprised to see eventually in a map like Infinite Velocity 2 is like proxy tech from Protoss, where they go for like literally like a proxy Argosy somewhere maybe up here or even on the island, because you can get a Didact rallied over here and recall, like do a sick recall for all of your ground army. That would obviously be pretty big. Skiback is coming, so I guess maybe we're going to be seeing, you know, Mass Skith or something like that. It's kind of interesting as a choice. More and more Cantavis. Cantavis feel like they'd be really good versus Skiths, but you got to make sure that the Skiths don't first get on top of your workers, because then you're just going to be storming yourself. However, with Hallucination, it does feel like, you know, you can stack, you can hit them a bunch and then just hit them with a lot of stacked stuff. But crucially, there is no, you know, static defense over here, really. In fact, do we have any static defense? No, we have 0 static defense right now. So Neblime is basically going to go the route of like building this impenetrable anti-ground army and then going for the mass Skith response to just essentially like check Jack to see if he's got any crowd control. Get a little bit of action down here with the artisan tickling the Ovaleth. I guess I can go into a little bit more detail about the exact specifications here, but essentially the pickup partner is indeed the sponsor, owned by BiddyBee. It's a moving company. Serves the East Coast, or I guess the North New England coast, sea coast area. So that's Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire a little bit, stuff like that. So if you're, it's a very domestic sponsor. You're not likely to see a lot of action, you know, from Europe or whatever. He does say technically he'll move anything anywhere if it's the right price, but you'd have to talk to him about that. Nonetheless, though, we will be featuring them proudly on the broadcasts. Skith, of course, coming down to slap the artisan around. And the main thing that I'm looking forward to is, you know, the fact that we have more prize money as a result of this to distribute across all these things. Now, we have 2 artisans over here. That's a little awkward because they can kill Skiths, but you know, it's not ideal, right? I don't know where this rally point is or why it's like that. It is kind of funny that, you know, even numbers of them could do that. Now, Iral Iris just went down. That's what that minimap ping was. So we will have another round of tech. And now we see all of Neblime's macro machine kicking into gear. We do have some envoys being produced. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe looking to airlift on top of his enemy's forces. Does have a lot of gas being mined. And, of course, has Grand Libraries being set up. Now taking a third base. And also trying to take a fourth base at the same time. I thought there was going to be a much heavier commitment into Skith. And I feel like maybe Neblime could have done that and just ended the game that way. But even with only 4 of them, he's able to disrupt the artisan mining. He's able to obviously distract Jack and maybe get some good worker damage over here. Obviously, Jack has been behind in workers for a little bit now. And at the same time as all this is happening, we've got Zets turning around. We've got this Nexus going to be under attack very soon. Got this ground force coming out here to defend for some reason. And all the while, Jack is seemingly oblivious to the fact that his worker line is being attacked. So that is definitely a little awkward, even though the ground army's done absolutely nothing here from Neblime in terms of the army-on-army fight. Didn't catch if this was canceled or not, but it definitely doesn't seem to matter too much as Jack has really, really heavily lost a lot of workers. Now, he can produce a lot, but it looks like he's actually been going for mass drops. He has so many envoys. There's 5 Cantavis in these envoys. I'm very surprised about that. And there's no static defense still. There was an engram being made. I don't know where the skits went. It looks like they're just sort of dancing around the perimeter. They will find the top left base not really engaged. And yeah, I think Jack is definitely struggling to keep up with all the different things, considering this is a race he doesn't normally play. Adding wardens and engrams into a couple of different facilities. We've got the Mutath. We've got all of the different tech here. He's gotten the Matravel Nest, the Mutat Spire. He's making the Tethvith Swamp. He's making the Alkagiteth. This man is on a tech binge, and obviously even adding a little bit of some Kafralosk somewhere down there. I'm pretty sure I saw that. Maybe not. Maybe it was in my imagination. Skits are still swarming around on the top, just scouting around. We will have a mass... I've never seen this style, admittedly. Like, if you get a lot of minerals, you can produce a lot of envoys. But I thought for sure he was going to use these 3 embassies to mass-produce workers to replace his losses, and that's why he wasn't too concerned about that. We do have, of course, the Grand Libraries, gateways over here. By the way, Crucibles don't stack. So they used to once upon a time. I think maybe before Jack was actually a player, they stacked, but not anymore. And so these envoys are indeed mostly loaded up, and we do need to see even more of them being made so that Jack can maybe foment a counterattack. The problem is there are forces sort of on the map. Yeah, that's the other thing is Neblime's army is very weak. It's very like tier 1 chaffy. It's kind of weird, kind of strange. He's got a scribe in one of those, so he's dispatched somewhere. Not really producing any army units though. He's made a Monument of Sin. So that's obviously going to be pretty advantageous for him. He can make a second one right next to the Crucible. And look at this. He's flying over the top. That's where these Skithrakors are. One of them will even get aggroed onto it. Neblime does pay attention to that. Does see the drop incoming. He has a bunch of units sort of like scattered around. I don't think it's going to be enough to stop the drop, but with the Matrolets on the way, we might even see some infested Protoss. You know, it could happen. Even more just spawning now. Oh no. Actually, you know, the Ensnaring Brood part is pretty big. Gonna go ahead and try to drop most of his units. He's still got 2 in that upper envoy that he can dispatch over here. There we go. Scribe, the battle scribe has arrived. It is dealing some damage, as you can see. Meanwhile, I mean, I guess there's not really that many units over here, but yeah, the Zets are coming back. The swarms are here. This battle scribe has been killed. And we even have we have an infested herald. We have double infested Dracodons. It's Protoss, boys. Infested Protoss, no less. Envoys on their way back. By the way, if you infest a transport, you infest everything in it, so keep that in mind. Oh my goodness, 26 workers are randomly dispatched over here to start distance mining. As oversaturated as he was. Almaxilisk's being made. I do think that Jack is... he's at a disadvantage, we'll say, for sure. I mean, he's down 40 workers, but in terms of effective bases, the biggest problem is just that he hasn't fully set up these bases here. He still has artisans, so the gas income is actually kind of comparable. Which is kind of interesting for Protoss to be able to do something like that. It does have a Star Sovereign coming. It is exclusively ground units, besides the fact that there's the Matroleth. But with the Matroleths here... Okay, the Elmax are here as well. I'm going to go on a wild limb and say that Star Sovereign doesn't stay jakulangski's for long. And that's probably why this game was submitted to me. other than the fact that it is the novelty of a Zerg player playing Protoss versus a Zerg player who has got his army stuck in the middle of the map. But hey, you know, sometimes you get novelty games, and other times you get really wacky competitive ones. In fact, if you want to see Neblime lose to a Protoss, apparently that is something that will be featured in a forthcoming set of matches casted, so stay tuned. And of course, you can also watch Neblime play as Zerg. Oh no, did he? Yeah, he did. He signed up as Terran initially and then had me change it because he didn't mean to, which I thought was really funny. But he will be signed up as Zerg indeed for the forthcoming tournament. Engram sounding off a shot. What was that too? It was just a Zeth. Somehow the Zeth survived the direct hit. I think it was probably like a... Yeah, there you go. Unfortunate. But hey, we have some action over here. The Almax obviously dealing quite a bit of damage. Maybe the Atriuses can end up getting infested. No, some Vilgalets instead. Here's the Star Sovereign. Well, you know that's going to happen. Oh, look, he's trying to go for the glassing. Well, the glassing will go off, crucially enough, but it will also be infested. This is a lot of dead Zerg in the meanwhile, but, you know, he had no area units to defend against that, and there it is, the infested Star Sovereign. I have never seen that one before. Unbelievable. Well, here's a fleet of artisans here to try to do something, maybe. I don't know what they're doing. They're just scattering around to try to get more and more units. Yeah, this is the thing where Jack has so much money, but he's only buying Star Sovereigns. This is definitely something that he could do better at. We got 10 mutas on the way to spend all the money. When Neblime stops really spending his money, you know it's probably like because he just thinks he's winning. He's ahead. Where did that infested Star Sovereign go is what I wonder. He's going somewhere else. Where is he? Why is he bringing it all the way back? He wants to protect it, or? I thought he was going to use it, you know, like actually put it in. But I guess not. Not interested. Another Star Sovereign here. The infested glassing is definitely something I was not expecting. Got a big horde of Zeths and Vilgoricors moving across. Look, the random artisan has been found. Mutas are on their way as well. Neblime's a busy man. Neblime's busy building workers or something in another game at the same time. I mean, he plays Cosmonarchy enough, I would believe that he's trying to do that, but Almax are going to move in. This should be more than enough to overwhelm the Star Sovereign, particularly since it'll probably end up getting infested again, if I had to guess. And there's a storm on top of the Star Sovereign, and there's another infestation. This one, oh no, he actually canceled, I think the Matrolets pulled away at the last second, so that's a little awkward. Well, there you go, some Vilgalets overwhelming the Protoss position. There's an Anthelion here, but I do think there's enough Almax if they come over that can overwhelm that position. The Mutas are up here doing their Muta things, Mutatastic things, killing off a bunch of these artisans. Ancestral Archives being warped in, that might give them a little bit of an advantage. We got a lot of Psystorms going to come out there, so that's going to blanket the field. But there's a Convolutk still. The fact that the Almaxilisks can't really get into it is a pretty big problem, I think. They can't actually get into it and kill the Anthelion. They might still do it, though, because there's not really any DPS onto the Almax. Yeah, okay, it does go down after all. And there's another round of a bunch of Tier 1 units hitting in. There's the infested Star Sovereign. It is back with a Mutas form. It's a little bit of a disjointed attack, admittedly, but you know what? I like it. It's here. I can't believe he actually did it to him. Now that's just rude. Oh my god. I mean, this would make a great thumbnail, but it kind of spoils the outcome of the game, doesn't it? I guess I already did this once with the Sovereign, and that was in the Newt versus Benno game. And obviously Benno did not end up winning that, spoilers. So, despite the whole glassing thing, it was pretty big. Got a lot of Tier 1 stuff screaming on in. Jack will call GG. He got the cinematic shot. And that is going to be our match today, ladies and gentlemen. It was silly. It was strange. And Jack needs some food, also known as oil. And we hope you guys join us for a very fun and entertaining March Invitational B, where there's a decent amount of money on the line, actually. So, shout out to our sponsors. Shout out to our prize pool pals. GG's.